1798 to 1848. Introduction. Following events took place in the span of 50 years from 1798 to 1805. রিচার্ড ওয়েলেসলি এসছে 1798 থেকে 1805 এক্সপ্যানশন অফ ব্রিটিশ এম্পায়ার। তারপরে সে কী করেছে? সাবসিডারি অ্যালায়েন্স, চার্টার অ্যাক্ট অফ 1813, ফ্রান্সিস হেস্টিংস, নেপাল অ্যান্ড বার্মা ওয়ার্স, উইলিয়াম বেন্টিক এসছে 1828 থেকে 35 অবধি। তারপর চার্টার অ্যাক্ট অফ 1833, লর্ড ম্যাকালে মিনিটস, তারপর অ্যাংলো শিক ওয়ার্স, লাস্ট কিংডম টু ফল। যাই হোক, রিচার্ড ওয়েলেসলি, ফিফথ গভর্নর অফ বেঙ্গল, হি কল হিমসেলফ দ্য বেঙ্গল টাইগার. He came to India with a determination to launch a forward policy in order to make the British Empire in India, the British Empire in order to make the British Empire in India to the British Empire of India. He adopted the policy of subsidiary alliance in order to achieve his expansionist objective. Opened for William College at Calcutta to train the company's servant in Indian languages and customs, but it was closed in 1802. Condition of the India upon their arrival, which led to subsidiary alliance. 1798. British were locked in a life and death struggle with France all over the world because French Revolution has just started. So whatever British policy came was to check French influence in India. So he soon realized that the political conditions in India were favorable for the expansion of British Empire in India. By 1797, the two strongest Indian power, Mysores and Marathas, had declined in power. Mysore War 1790 to 92, Treaty of Srirangapatnam ceded a lot of territories. Marathas first Maratha War 1775, Treaty of Salwai. Also by this time, all powerful leaders in Marathas died. This led to infighting. Expansion was profitable. More area for raw materials and trade. Subsidiary alliance. Indian states were declared as the protected states and the British as the paramount power. British were to save Indian states from external aggressions in return of money, part of territory, to support subsidiary troops. The native ruler had to maintain a contingent of British troops in his capital, commanded by the British officers. States had to cut off their relations from any other foreign power, mainly France. States were forbidden to make new political connections, even with the Indian states, without British permission. States were also forbidden to employ any other Europeans in their court or service without British permission. তারপর হচ্ছে states were also disband their army and keep a British resident at their court for advice. These disband soldiers later become Pindaris and harassed Britishers and in many states by joining with the Marathas. British promised not to interfere in the internal affairs of protected states. In reality, by signing a subsidiary alliance, an Indian princely state virtually signed away its independence, the right to self-defense, maintaining diplomatic relations, employing foreign experts, settling its dispute with its neighbors. The progress of subsidiary alliance. 1765, the Treaty of Allahabad with Awadh was a precursor to subsidiary alliance. 1798, Nizam of Hyderabad was first to sign. তারপর হচ্ছে 1799 Tanjore, Surat, Mysore. 1801 Awadh, also annexation of Rohilkhand, Arcot. 1802 Gaikwad or Peshwa. 1803 Scindia and Bhosle. 1810 all Rajput states of Rajasthan. Merits from British point of view. By this system, English became the supreme or paramount power in India. These resources and influence of company increased greatly. The alliance helped the English maintain control over other Indian rulers. It enabled the company to maintain a large standing army at the expenses of Indian princes. The extent of British Empire in India increased greatly as several rulers had ceded parts of their kingdoms. Demerits of subsidiary alliance. The native rulers lost their prestige and dignity. তারপর হচ্ছে the subsidy demanded from the Indian rulers was beyond their means and they could not afford it. So they taxed their people very heavily. The Indian rulers were compelled to disband their own armies. Pindaris scourge. The local rulers lived a life of irresponsibility and degradations because they considered that security was now British concern. Though not allowed to wage war with each other directly, they kept plotting and intriguing against one another. তারপর আসছে স্যার জর্জ বার্লো. Mutiny of Vellore in 1806 took place in which the Indian soldiers killed many English officers. The mutiny was ever Sepoy mutiny against East India Company. It was initiated by the son of Tipu Sultan. Lord Minto won. তারপরে আসছে সেটা হচ্ছে ট্রিটি অফ অমৃতসর উইথ মহারাজা রঞ্জিত সিং অফ পাঞ্জাব. Maharaja Ranjit Singh was asked to remain north to Sutlej River and not to interfere in the south of it. Charter Act 1813 was passed during his period. Charter Act 1813, Charter are written grant by the sovereign or legislative power by which a body such as company or university is created or its right and privileges defined. East India Company got its first charter from Queen Elizabeth I in 1600 AD, which gave it monopoly in India to do business with India. Other companies in England couldn't do business with India. Earlier reforms came from this charter were Regulating Act of 1773, Pitt's India Act of 1784, Charter Act of 1786, Charter Act of 1793. It was decided to bring reforms in every 20 years. So the next charter came in 1813, 1833, 1853. Later Indian Council Act replaced the Charter Act. Indian Council Act 1858, it came after the revolt of 1857. British government removed East India Company and seized the power in its own hand. Causes for the bringing the act: as a result of the Industrial Revolution, a large trading community in England emerged, free traders. They were demanding the removal of monopoly of East India Company. Newly emerged utilitarian and liberals also demanded for direct or crown rule over Indian territories to civilize the brown race. তারপর হচ্ছে liberals wanted the crown to rule or civilize Indians, not to enslave them. Christian missionaries pressurized the government to allow evangelism or preaching. Provision of the Act renewed the charter issued to the East India Company for another 20 years. Company rule continued. Rupees 1 lakh annually for promoting modern education in country. It caused the commotion against member of parliament as this much money had never been allotted for modern education in India. Christian missionaries allowed to enter India and preach. British subjects could settle in India. Monopoly of East India Company ended in India except for tea and trade with China for 20 years. East India Company exported opium from India and imported silk and gunpowder from China. Other British merchants and companies could now trade in India. তারপর আসছে লর্ড ফ্রান্সিস হ্যাস্টিংস 1813 থেকে 23 অবধি। এর টেনিয়রে কী হয়েছিল? গোর্খা ওয়ার উইথ নেপাল, suppression of Pindaris in 1817, full suppression of Marathas, Third Anglo-Maratha War, established riotary system of land revenue, 1817 Hindu College at Calcutta for English and Western education by Raja Ram Mohan Roy and David Hare. তারপর হচ্ছে 1817 ব্রিটিশ সেট আপ 3 সংস্কৃত কলেজ অ্যাট ক্যালকাটা, দিল্লি অ্যান্ড আগ্রা, encourage freedom of press and abolish censorship issued in 1799 during Wellesley period. Anglo-Nepal War, Treaty of Sugauli, 1816, Nepal accepted a British resident. Nepal ceded the district of Garhwal and Kumaon and abandoned claims to Tarai. Sikkim became independent from Nepal's rule. Recruitment of Gurkha in British army started. Advantage to the British, it got better facilities for trade with the Central Asia. It acquired hill stations such as Shimla, Mussoorie and Nainital from Tarai regions. Gurkha joined the British Indian Army in large number. Great service to the empire's armies. It played important role in suppressing the revolt of 1857 along with the Britishers. তারপর আসছে Lord Amherst. The principal events which took place under his tenure are as follows: annexation of Assam, the Burma Wars, mutiny of Barakpur, 1824, uprising of Indian native sepoys due to British insensitivity towards Indian cultural sentiments combined with the poor supply of arrangements, Anglo-Burma War, lure of forest resources, market for British manufactures, and the need to check French ambitions in Burma and in rest of Southeast Asia. First Burma War, Burmese occupied Arakan and Manipur. It posed a threat to Assam and Brahmaputra Valley. So the British forces occupied Rangoon in 1824. 1826, Treaty of Yandabo. Burma recognized Manipur as an independent state, and the terms of treaty allowed the British to acquire the most of the Burma's coastline and also farm base in Pegu, Burma for future expansion. Later, Second and Third Burma War happened in 1852 and 1885 respectively. Burma was completely annexed after 3 years. তারপর আসছে উইলিয়াম বেন্টিক, নেক্সট ইম্পর্টেন্ট গভর্নর জেনারেল অফ বেঙ্গল, ফার্স্ট true British reformer who worked for the welfare of Indian as his primary duty. He acted where others talked. Social reforms, outlawing of sati practice 1829, prevented female infanticide, made it an offence, banned human sacrifice, reform in the Hindu law of inheritance, suppression of thugs by Colonel Sliman, adopted policy of non-interventions and only annexed states to ended misgovernment in Mysore and put it under Lord Cubbon. Financial reforms, abolished double bhatta system, example war allowance, reduced salaries as increased by the Cornwallis to consolidate finance, abolished provincial courts set up by Cornwallis to cut down expenditure, Mahalwari system for land revenue introduced. Other reforms, introduced local languages in lower courts and English in higher courts replacing Persian. Macaulay Committee made English as an official language, laid foundation of Calcutta Medical College 1835. It became the first medical college in India. Charter Act of 1833 was passed during his rule only. Charter Act of 1833 made provisions to create uniform and codified system of law in India. Following are complete to end to the monopoly of East India Company, complete free trade policy. East India Company became purely administrative body with few business engagements. Centralized administrations in India. তারপর গভর্নমেন্ট জেনারেল গট পাওয়ার অফ সুপারিনটেন্ডেন্স, ডিরেকশন অ্যান্ড কন্ট্রোল অফ দ্য হোল সিভিল অ্যান্ড মিলিটারি গভর্নমেন্ট অ্যান্ড রেভিনিউজ অফ দ্য ইন্ডিয়া। গভর্নর জেনারেল অফ বেঙ্গল থেকে গভর্নর জেনারেল অফ ইন্ডিয়া হলো। তাহলে ফার্স্ট গভর্নর অফ বেঙ্গল লর্ড ক্লাইভ, লাস্ট গভর্নর অফ বেঙ্গল ওয়ারেন হেস্টিংস, ফার্স্ট গভর্নর জেনারেল অফ বেঙ্গল ওয়ারেন হেস্টিংস, লাস্ট গভর্নর জেনারেল অফ বেঙ্গল লর্ড উইলিয়াম বেন্টিক, আর ফার্স্ট গভর্নর জেনারেল অফ বেঙ্গল অফ ইন্ডিয়া William Bentinck. It attempted to introduce a system of open competitions for selection of civil servants. Indians should not be debarred from holding any office. However, this provision was dropped after opposition from the Court of Directors. Later in the Charter Act of 1853, open competition actually started, though exams were conducted in England only. Earlier, the Cornwallis laid foundation of civil services by making appointments on the basis of merit, though only English could become civil servants. Enlarged the executive council by the addition of fourth member মানে ল মেম্বার যেটা ফর দ্য লেজিসলেটিভ পারপাসেস। রেগুলেটিং অ্যাক্টে চারটে ছিল 1773-তে, তারপর পিট সিন্ধি অ্যাক্টে তিনটে হলো, আবার চার্টার অ্যাক্টে চারটে হলো। টিবি ম্যাকলে ওয়াজ দ্য ফার্স্ট ল মেম্বার, অ্যাপয়েন্টমেন্ট অফ দ্য ফার্স্ট ল কমিশন ইন ইন্ডিয়া। লর্ড ম্যাকলে মিনিটসে কি বলছে, মিনিটস ইন হিজ স্পিচ, গভর্নমেন্ট রিসোর্সেস শুড বি ডিভোটেড to teaching of Western sciences and literature through the medium of English language alone. The government soon made English as the medium of instruction in its schools and colleges and opened a few English schools and colleges instead of large number of elementary schools, thus neglecting mass education. Downward filtration theory. The British planned to educate a small section of upper and middle classes, thus creating a class Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, opinion, moral, and intellect. Who would act as interpreters between the government and masses and would enrich the vernaculars by which knowledge of Western sciences and literature would reach the masses. This led to the formation of Congress 50 years later, which proved its success, though Congress only became the cause of British rule in India. Though Congress only became cause of British rule in India. Sir Charles Metcalfe, he held the post temporarily, removed the restrictions on the vernacular press, liberator of the press বলা হয় মেটক্লেফকে এই জন্য। Lord Auckland, first Afghan war, a disaster for British with an overall Afghan victory. Reason, great game, Russia wanted to access the warm water port of Mediterranean. British thought it that Russia is going to attack British India through Afghanistan. Tripartite treaty among the English, Maharaja Ranjit Singh and Shah Shuja of Afghanistan. তারপর আসছে লর্ড এলেন বোরগ ended first Afghan war and withdrew British forces from Afghanistan. Annexation of Sindh under Charles Napier. তারপর আসছে লর্ড হার্ডিঞ্জ ওয়ান, ফার্স্ট অ্যাংলো-শিখ ওয়ার অ্যান্ড ট্রিটি অফ লাহোর 1846. তারপর হচ্ছে অ্যাংলো-শিখ ওয়ার্স, ব্রিটিশ ইমার্জ ভিক্টোরিয়াস। অ্যাংলো-শিখ ওয়ার্সে কী হয়েছিল, দ্য শিখ missiles of 18th century had consolidated in a large empire in the Punjab and Kashmir region under Maharaja Ranjit Singh of Suker Chakia missile from 1800 onwards. Capital ছিল লাহোর, ruled 1800 to 1839. Treaty of Amritsar 1809, river sutlej হয়েছিল, was fixed as a boundary between the British area of influence and Sikh empire. 1839, Ranjit Singh dies. Ranjit Singh maintained a careful balance between the powerful Sikh chiefs and the freshly recruited military commanders from among the peasants of the central Punjab and non-Punjabi nobles such as Dogra Rajputs from Jammu. The delicate balancing game functioned well until Ranjit Singh's death in 1839. Within a decade of his death, the independent Sikh rule disappeared from Punjab as a struggle of power among the mighty Sikh chiefs. Later, the royal family feuds helped the English to take over without much difficulty. First Anglo-Sikh War. Reasons, infighting and successions and struggles in family of Ranjit Singh. Fear of a British attack led to Sikh army crossing Sutlej to fight British. Sikh army was defeated in 4 hard battles. Treaty of Lahore 1846, resident installed at Lahore Court. Territory up to Bias River annexed by the British. Treaty of Amritsar 1846, Kashmir was given to Dogra Raja Gulab Singh of Jammu for 75 lakhs. The second Anglo-Sikh War, revolt by governor of Multan against the resident. Later Sikh army joined him. Sikh army got defeated. Kohinoor was taken by the British. Kohinoor possessions Nadir Shah 1739, তারপর আহমদ শাহ আবদালি, তারপর শাহ সুজা, তারপর রঞ্জিত সিং, তারপর থেকে ব্রিটিশ. Sikh Empire got annexed by Dalhousie. Thus, the Battle of Plassey 1757, Boxer 1764, which established British dominion over East India. The Anglo-Mysore War 1766, 1779, the Anglo-Maratha War 1775 to 1818, annexation of Sindh 1843, and finally the Anglo-Sikh Wars 1845 to 49 consolidated the British claim over South Asia, resulting in the British Empire in India.